what's up everyone? Sean here with Blue Ridge. Hope everyone's having a great morning so far. I figure I'd do a quick little hit video of a new acquisition that I picked up on Facebook coin group. Thank you, Mr. Firm, by the way, for the deal. He actually put this coin up as a Facebook auction, which is really cool. And he previewed the coin. I'm like, I gotta have that. More so because it's one of my favorite errors to find out there. In addition, it's also my birth year. So it just kind of makes sense. But today we're going to talk about misaligned dies. It's one of my favorite errors that you could find out in Change today. And generally, I like to start out when I do these type of videos just by looking at a regular coin. Okay, and the reason why is understanding what the coin looks like on the front and the back. So the obverse is the front of the coin with the date, and the reverse is the other side of the coin. So as you could tell on this 55 Washington quarter, everything is so well centered. Okay, the coin is not in error, it's not off center, it's not any of that stuff. This is what a traditional strike would look like to you and I. Okay, that's probably as close as to the word perfection as you could get when it comes to straight centering on these coins. But sometimes you could come across a coin that looks like this. Now, the front of the coin will appear to have like a fatter rim. Okay, it might to you appear a little bit off center, but when you flip the coin over, it is perfectly centered, much like that Washington quarter I showed you a second ago. So when we're taking a look at these coins and then you come across something like this, you're like, man, I think I found an off-center error. But you'd flip the coin around to the reverse and come to find out that your coin is perfectly centered on one side while the other side appears off-center. Okay, now this might stump a lot of folks. Is it an off-center error? It can't be, right? Because the back of the coin is perfectly centered. This is a phenomenon called a misaligned die. Okay, and I have probably the... Oh, sorry about that. I had a call come in, but the best reference I could do, and I knew these older tubes had some sort of use. Okay, so if you could imagine the tubes acting as the dies. Okay, so the bottom tube would act as what they call the anvil die. Okay, that's stationary. In a minting press, this anvil die does not move at all. Okay, and generally it'll have the reverse impression or the reverse die that's going to strike up the coins. So the other die moves up and down. Okay, they call it the hammer die. So it's like the hammer slapping down on the anvil. Okay, if you can imagine, that action happening on these machines. So generally, when a coin is being struck, okay, so we have the nickel on there. It's like the perfect size too. Okay, the top die or the hammer die will strike that coin in collar flush. Okay, so that's why you get a very centered strike. Unlike this nickel, I used the actual misaligned die circulated nickel error here for my example. Okay, so as you guys know, machinery breaks down over time. Okay, it's subjected to a lot of wear and tear. So sometimes, okay, you're going to get some rattling in the top die because that's the one that moves the most and is subjected to the most wear and tear in the machine. So sometimes, and this is how like machine doubling and strike doubling occurs, is that, when a coin is struck and then it's completing the action of the strike. Okay, sometimes they'll have a little bit of a bounce on that hammer die, or sometimes they'll shift as it's coming up before the ejection of the coin. So there's a lot of things that can go on. Okay, it's like that good old saying in Breakfast Club, screws fall out all the time. The world's in a perfect place. Okay, it's one of my favorite kind of lines from the movie. But anyways, that kind of helps sums up the way the minting presses work, is that over time they have to be tightened up, they have to be adjusted, the dies have to be replaced or worked on. So on a misaligned die, okay, so the bottom die is perfectly centered, the coin is in collar, okay, and then the top die will begin its strike Okay, it might be off center like that. Off just a little bit. Just enough to show the appearance of a misaligned edge on the obverse of the coin, while the reverse is perfectly centered. Now, in the most extreme cases where, let's say, this issue with the loose die or the misaligned die doesn't get repaired in enough time, then you get something that looks like this. Okay, and that nickel is neat. Okay, but it's not what I would consider to be kind of like a rarity or something that is incredibly valuable. It's only when you get to this progression here where things get really interesting. All right, so we have, this is a 1978D Washington quarter. Okay, that's my birth year. This is the coin that I bought. And if you look on the reverse, the coin is basically well centered. Okay, there's a little bit of weakness right here. Okay, and the reason why is that the hammer die was way off. Okay, see how far the die was off on there? Quite a bit. I mean, it's almost a quarter inch, but where these things begin to get a lot more desirable on the secondary market as far as desirability and, you know, all that stuff is all in how offset the misaligned die is. Okay, so when you get to a point where a lot of the major devices are beginning to get cut off here, okay, that is exactly what you want to see. And that is from the perspective of a major error collector. This is what they covet, is things like this. Like this nickel right here. Okay, so you have a little bit of misaligned die action, and sure, it looks neat. It's like, oh man, that rim's fat. All right, so you were beginning to see a little bit of like the motto getting cut off, but it's not enough to warrant any kind of premium. That's maybe a coin on the perfect day that you could sell for maybe $1 or $2. All right, but when you get to this point right here, where a lot of the, like in this case, half of the date is completely missing, but you know it's a 78 based off of the shape of the top curl of the 8. All right, and then on the reverse, you have a lot of weakness. Okay, that's the area that on the opposite side, on the obverse, didn't get struck up because of the misaligned die and how far offset it was. But this is a very nice higher end, kind of like, if I would have to guess, like a Mint State 63 example. In my collection, it's going to be in there for the rest of my life, but it's something that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And also the coin will begin to take kind of like a teardrop type shape. It's not going to be absolutely 100% perfectly round, but coins like this do come up in circulation every so often. I would say more so in Lincoln cents, only because as coins age, they get darker, and things like this seem to get lost to untrained eyes, whereas this quarter is big enough and it's like incredibly offset that, you know, a lot of the newer collectors will see something like this, pull it out, and are like, man, this thing's really neat. And, you know, go from there. And then they'll begin to do their research and their investigation and find out what they have. But to give you an idea, I paid $70 for this coin. And guess what? That's market, guys. For this type of offset on a coin of this condition and grade, it's a coin that will be worth quite a bit of money. Now, if you found another coin, another denomination, maybe the condition's not as good, okay, those are coins that still will sell for between 10 and 20 bucks. All right, but the condition, the age, just how offset the misaligned die is on these, I mean, you have the perfect recipe of a coin that is worth quite a bit of money. Who would have thought that this would be worth a $50 bill and a 20, right? I mean, you know, it is an incredible error. And then when you do find one, it socks you in the face because it is an incredibly strong, very, very, very offset misaligned die. But there you go. Hopefully I didn't, you know, bore you with all the details. I talk about misaligned dies all the time, but this is a great kind of like progression video from like a standard perfect struck coin to some of the more extreme examples of that type of error. I want to thank you guys for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick little video. I'm your host, Sean, with BlueRidgeSilverhound. Coinaholics, we are discovering together, as always. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for instant notification. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.